Okay, hello, this is Jay, and in this tutorial we're going to take the skinning that we did last time and just improve it by adding corrective blend shapes to fix some of the areas that we just can't do with basic skinning. So this is the final mesh with the corrective blend shapes, and we can see these are the corrective blend shapes here. So there's quite a few, and we could add more or less, depends how much, it's up to you. So if I just unhide these, we can see these are all the corrective blend shapes I added for this character. And again, some of these I think we could have added in shot, like did on a shot by shot basis for some of these. And there's a few that I've left out that I want to probably add in the shot because we may not need it in some cases. So it's trying to make everything fit for purpose. So if I hide that for now then just show you the results, I've just popped some animation on this. I'll show you like a before and an after. So this is with the corrective blend shapes on. Again, I've just got a series of poses here. And if I come up here, we can see the bicep bulge. And we've got the bicep bulge by just flexion of the elbow, and then also the full bulge by going into supine position. Okay, and I've added a couple on the wrist just to keep that volume maintained in here. You can see down here we got some happening just on his. Just give him a few love handles, I guess. Same on that side, and then the legs, just to improve the legs as they come up and go back, and finally the knee. Okay, so yeah, pretty much just in areas of large articulation. I haven't done the fingers or anything, but it's up to you if you want to go down to that level. I think these fingers feel okay for what they need to do, and again I haven't done the neck or the head, but that could be done in shot for some stuff. So yeah, this is with, and if I just show you without, so let me just take, or let's just, if I take the right hand side and blow them for now, we can compare the left from the right. And yeah, using corrective blend shapes is just one way of improving the deformation. We could do something like use muscle setups, or post-based deformation, which I regard as like blend shapes but on crack or something. Their post-based deformation is a fantastic thing to add to your characters. But yeah, let's compare the difference now. So we can see the right hand side of the character has no corrective shapes applied, and there's a huge difference there. Even coming forward, this area here just loses volume and gets a bit mangled up. Going back, there's no pull. Again, this region here, if we compare the difference, this one sort of has a bit more volume in these areas. Arms coming down, just sort of improve that shape slightly. It's very subtle, but again, this feels very smooth going from the shoulder down to the elbow, where this one's got a bit more of a break between the bicep and the deltoid. So we see what's happened here with the bend of the elbow. Oops. So just pulled out this elbow a lot more, not a lot more, but a bit, and we've got the bicep bulge happening there. Again, if we see what that's doing close up, you can see we got the full flexion of, or we got the bicep working fully there. Where on this side there's nothing. The wrist. Okay, so we can see there's a lot of a loss in volume here, and also a bit under there as well. So quite a big difference in some of these areas. Nothing happening on that side. Big blob on that side, probably too much, but never mind. And the legs, I've really tried to improve this shape here. We see the difference with this one, feels very crumpled up again. From that to that, and going back again, the sort of leg penetrates the bottom, where this one I've tried to get the two colliding. And then lastly the knee region. Okay, so we can see this sort of starts to intersect, where this side's a lot cleaner. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much all I've added, and that's what we'll cover today. Okay. Okay, so before we begin, I just want to go through a couple of the scripts we'll be using to speed up the process of creating the corrective blend shapes and then mirroring them over. So firstly, I'd like to thank, let me bring this up, Brendan Ross for allowing me and giving me permission to use and also allow you to have the script with this tutorial for the absim mesh. So this is great for checking the symmetry of your model and then creating one side and then flipping the corrective blend shape over. So we only have to focus on, say, the left hand side, and then click of a button and we'll create the right hand side. And then also Christian Breitling for allowing me to use his B-Spirit corrective shape tool, which allows us to fix a corrective shape in the pose rather than having to do it in the default sort of bind pose. So both of these are going to be magic for what we need. We're also going to use a combination of Mudbox sometimes to just go in there and sculpt the corrective poses, because I find it sometimes easier to do it in the sculpting packages like Mudbox or ZBrush as opposed to doing it in Maya. But yeah, we use a mix depending on what corrective blend shape we need to build. So let's go through them. So I'm just going to bring up the script editor, and I've already loaded these two here. I'll just wipe them and reload them again so we can see how they work. So so they should be in your scripts folder that comes with this project. So we've got the absim mesh. It's a mel, both of them are mel, so just do it in a mel window. Let's go with the absim mesh first. And all you got to do is just hit Control A to highlight everything, enter on the numpad just to source this, and then look for absim mesh, and then hit enter again just to run the script. Okay, so we got this little window here, and then we can select our geometry and tell it that this is the base mesh, and let it do its thing to build a symmetry table. Depending on the density of your mesh, this will either be quite quick or quite slow, or in this case I'll say it's in the middle. But but if your model's not symmetrical, I'll cover that later on, and in one of the top tips actually. So it's in there how to resymmetrize your model, or how I go about doing it anyway. It's a bit of a fudge, and depending on where you are in your, say, production pipeline, you may be able to get away with what I'm going to do or not. So we'll see. Okay, 90. Here we go. Okay, so that's telling me here that my base geometry is symmetrical, so that's all good. And what we can do now is, if I just duplicate this mesh, what have I got selected? If I duplicate this mesh, and I'll just unlock this and move this away. So if I now take these vertices and do something like this, and I want to mirror this over, I can very quickly, or flip this over, I can just hit this button and let it do its thing. Obviously I should have duplicated it first, so I have two versions, the left and the right hand side, but it should give me exact match on the other side. Okay, there we go. So again, that's going to be fantastic for creating one side and mirroring them over. The other script is the B-Spirit corrective, so I'll just load that. Again, it's in your scripts folder. Again, I'm just going to highlight everything and run this just to source the script. And now what I'm going to do is I'll leave this open. I'll just minimize this, delete that for now. So with this one, it allows us to build the corrective shape in pose. So I'm going to take this, I'm just going to rotate the arm and the X, and I'm going to presume that this isn't the pose I want, or I want to maybe add some muscle bulge to this. So we can select this geometry and duplicate it in pose. I'm going to unlock this, and then I can modify the shape here in vertex mode, face or edge mode, or you can take this into a sculpting package and do whatever you like. Again, I'm just going to do that for now so we can see this. And then I'm going to select this geometry, I'm going to select the original model, and then I'm going to just highlight this here and run this script, and it's going to figure out the difference between this shape and what's moved, and also look at the skin cluster to put it back to the original shape. So now we get this, and if we apply this on top of this as a blend shape, which we're going to do for our corrective shapes, here it is, we get this shape here. Okay, so we get that target, only we can work at it in pose. If we were to apply this shape to this as a corrective blend shape, let's just say we pose it, we fix it, and then we apply it. Let's just add a new blend shape for now. This one, you'll see we get a double transformation, which is not what we want. So we need to figure out the difference between the current pose and what makes this pose that's going to be applied on top of our skin cluster to give us the corrective blend shape, okay, to work properly. Hopefully that made some sense. Okay, if not, hopefully that does there. So that's the plan. They're the two main scripts, and again, every now and then, because in terms of what we can do in Maya, we can move the points around. Normal modeling, polymodeling tools, we could use the sculpt geometry tool to push this around. So we may use some of these tools here just to build our shapes, but I'm also going to send this into Mudbox as well sometimes just to use those tools. Okay, so cool. So the other thing actually I'll quickly mention that I've done since last time is, let me just reopen this scene again, is I've just got rid of the wrap deformer that was on the pants, and I've just deleted the history on that as well, so I'll just bring them back. So these aren't following along anymore for now. I've just disabled that really, only to keep the scene a little snappier, but I'll pop that back on towards the end, or maybe even convert it to some sort of cloth simulation or something, but for now I've just disabled it, deleted the just did an edit delete by type history, and that took out the wrap deformer. And then you probably got the same the duplicate of the male geometry that it creates for the wrap. Just delete that as well. Okay, so yeah, we'll crack on and create the corrective shapes. Okay, so so what I need to do first is I need to find my trouble spot, and I find with this wrist, this sort of motion's fine here. I don't mind that. I think that looks okay even. I think twisting works fine, but extension and flexion, so flexion, I feel like I want to tidy this up under here slightly, although that's fine. I just want to get a bit more volume back there. So extension I want to tidy up, and also definitely flexion I want to tidy up slightly, and also extension of the wrist. We lose a lot of volume around here, especially there. So you probably move your wrist to around that amount, unless you're breaking someone's wrist, but I really want to fix all of this happening in here. It feels like it's just slightly falling apart. So so what we need to do is put this into that pose. Again, we'll create the flexion first, so let's say -70, and I'm just going to duplicate this geometry here, so Control D, and I'll just Shift P to bring that out of the hierarchy, and then I'm not going to rename this for now. I'm just going to unlock the attributes because they've been locked because of the skin cluster, and then just translate that back here. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is maybe just create a layer from selected and hide everything else for now, so we can just focus on this and just frame this. Okay, so that's my wrist, and yeah, I just want to fix this pose slightly. So I'm just going to use the basic modeling tools in Maya for now, so just moving points around really. Maybe I'll grab, and I've got soft selection turned on, so I've got B active, or you can double click the translate tool and just come under soft selection. So I've just got that active, and I'm just selecting a few points here, just so I can bring them back out. And you can, and if you want, you can, you've got this fall off radius here, which I tend not to use, but if you hold the B and the left mouse button, you can left mouse drag in the viewport to grow or shrink that sort of fall off interactively. So with that, I'm just going to pull this out, maybe something like this, and again, I think the top region works fine. It's just under there I want a bit more volume, and maybe I'm just going to use the sculpt geometry tool, which is just under mesh, sculpt geometry tool, and I'll set this to relax, which is this one. I've got the displacement down slightly, and I've set the reference vector to normal. And again, you can use the B, hold the left mouse button down to grow or shrink the radius, or use the M, hold the left mouse button down to increase and shrink the max displacement. So I'm just going to left mouse click and just smooth some of this out. I'm probably going to just pull some of this out as well, because I've just sucked it in a bit much. Got a whack on pen somewhere I could use. Probably going to be a bit easier. So I'm just holding the shift to just smooth some of this out. Just gonna disable the wireframe. Oops. There we go. Okay. So yeah, I've just cleaned up some of that. I think maybe I want bit more of a crease in here, so maybe I'll just take some of these edges and turn off the soft selection and push that up, take some of this out. And again, I'm just going to use a soft selection set to normal, relax, sorry. Just to smooth some of this out. So the relax just kind of evens out the edges, which is quite nice. So that feels fine. I feel happy with that. Again, we're not going to get all the wrinkle folds and yeah, all the wrinkle folds under there, because we just don't have the topology to support that. But we could use like a normal map or displacement map to do so. But I'm happy with that. And if I bring this back now, I just maybe zero this out to overlay it, we can kind of see the difference. If I just template this maybe, so we can see the difference there, and it's made. Okay, so I'm just going to push this one back, and now I'm going to create that corrective shape fix. Okay, because this is just the temp model to work in pose. So I'm going to bring up that script editor. Go to the B spirit. Actually, I'm going to select the corrective shape fix, the default pose. Not the default pose, sorry. The character in pose, and just run this. And we get this one here. I'm just going to shift P to bring that out, and that you can see. Well, let me delete the one we used to get it there. If I zoom in on this, especially underneath, we can see we've got our the offset between this pose and what it needs to put that character into that corrective pose. Okay, so we've got one corrective shape fix built there. So in the next step, we'll take this and we'll just duplicate it and then create the other side and apply it to this character. Okay. Okay, so I want to now create the right hand side, but I want to name this quickly so I don't so I know what it's doing, basically, because it's quite hard to tell when it's just that little bulge. So I'm going to give it a name that's going to be connected to the amount of rotation this joint has had to get it into this shape. So it's rotate Z minus 70 degrees. So I'm going to call this left, or L wrist, RZ underscore, and then M 70 for minus 70 degrees. So I know it's the left wrist corrective blend shape. It's rotate Z is the driver for this shape, and then it's minus 70 degrees is the amount to get it into that pose. Okay, so with that, I'm just going to hit Control D, shove this over slightly, and I'm going to call this one minus 70 again, but right, so R underscore wrist, and I'm going to bring up the absent mesh tool, which I've already sourced. So it should run. I should probably just, you can just drag and drop this up here, and this one as well into your shaft. Just drag and drop this. Could give them a number, but I'll just leave them for now. So with that, what I want to do is, my base geometry is this one. It should be the same still, it shouldn't freak out, and I should be able to just flip select it. It's almost there. Okay, so let's have a look. So there we go, we've got the right hand side created there now. So if we now apply these to our character, they should drive the corrective shape fix. Okay, and we'll actually do that in the next step. Okay, so to apply these two as a blend shape, and make sure you rename these, because these are going to turn up in the blend shape node. So yeah, make sure you definitely rename these as you go, or you'll just have random gibberish like male, geo, 1, 2, etc. So select these two. These are the blend shapes you need to select first. Then select the main geometry and go animation menu set, create deformers, blend shape with the options box, and we want to go and give it a name. So I'll call it correctives. And in the advanced tab, you want to make sure it's front of chain or parallel actually, so it happens before the skin cluster. Okay, if it happens after the skin, actually I'll show you maybe. Let's set it to after. I'll show you. So what happens now is, if we do something like this and then go to use that corrective shape, because it's happening after the skin cluster, it's going to put that character back into that pose. Okay, so I'll just undo that. And I can actually, well yeah, it doesn't matter if I've got it in this pose for now actually. So I'll do that again, create deformers, blend shapes, correctives, advanced, front of chain, create. Okay, so now this blend shape lives on this, and we can turn that shape on like that. Okay, so that's our corrective blend shape being applied, and these, when they're on, these shapes are still active, so you know, they still can be modified and edited. So you can leave them in your scene. If something's freaking out, you can just go in and fix it, which I'm going to keep for now, and then later on, I think in the next tutorial, I'm going to reference this rig into an animation file, I guess, so it's a lighter scene file rather than having all these correctives. But I will have backed up a scene with these correctives in there, so I can always fix things or update things. Okay, but we see that's working there. Oops, I want this. So you can see that's working, and disable that for now, and the other side should be as well. Okay, so I'm just highlighting the word and middle mouse dragging in the viewport to hook them up. And if we see what this looks like together, maybe with the animation, we can get a better idea of how it's going to work. So maybe if I just set a key around here and enable this blend shape. Again, we'll be doing this through a set driven key rather than manually, but there's no reason why you couldn't do it manually. I'm just going to turn that off now and pop that back to 0. Okay, so we can now see that shape. It's got a lot more volume in that wrist during flexion, and if we compare it to this wrist, which isn't enabled. You can see it just sort of crumples up around here a little. Okay, so that's the flexion done. I'm just going to delete these keys and the keys here. And what we'll do next is extension, and then we'll hook everything up into the with set driven keys and using joint rotation as drivers rather than controls. Okay, so I'm just going to select these two for now, group them together, and call this correctives underscore go underscore grp. And yeah, in the next step we'll handle extension of the wrist. Okay, so we're going to create the extension pose now. So I'm just going to hide these two, extension of the wrist, and I'm going to rotate this back to around, I think it was around 100 was a good value. I like using whole numbers, just easier to remember when I need to hook everything up or write the names of these corrective blend shapes. So I'm just going to duplicate this, again unlock the translate, scale and rotate channels, and then translate this back again. We'll pop that into that new layer, and then I'm just going to hide the NURBS curves and the this layer here. Same again, I'm just going to use the very similar tools to get this into shape. So just going into vertex mode to begin with. Maybe deselecting those, this, and again soft selection. Just pulling that up. Just to get that volume back. And again, I'm just going to use the sculpt geometry tool, set this to relax, just smooth that out slightly. So just even out these faces. You can hold down the shift to smooth as well. So I'm just holding down the shift there just to smooth rather than coming in here and activating it. So that feels better. I probably want a bit more volume here, so maybe I'll just pull this out with a low, just brush over that region, maybe here as well. Okay, so that feels like that volume's back. And again, the things like the creases and the folds, you can try and get using the current topology, I guess. But I think for some of these tight folds, I'd probably be tempted to use a normal map or something. You can see what we get, but it's just not going to look as good, I think. So yeah, I think for something like that, I'd probably just on this character anyway, unless the resolution was a bit higher, I'm probably going to use a normal map if anything. But again, from a distance, the volume's preserved. It's a lot better than, let's bring it up actually, see what we got. Let's just zero this back out to compare the two again. So yeah, we got a lot more volume happening. Trying to think, do I want to push this? Maybe tempted just to also bring out some of this here. Maybe. Okay, so that's our corrective shape for the wrist, for the extension of the wrist. And yeah, I'm going to just create this now using the B-Spirit corrective, which was this one here. Yeah, so I'm going to select the corrective fix, select the original pose, character, and hit the B-Spirit corrective again to rebuild this, and then I'll just move that out the way and get rid of this one for now. Okay, so that's our corrective fix. I'll rename this, I'll just Shift P to bring it out. I'm just going to steal the naming convention here and rename this. This is going to be positive 100. because that's what we use to get it there. And again, using the absim mesh tool, I'm going to duplicate this model and then flip select it to build the other side. And that's it there, and I'll just rename this one to be right underscore. Okay, so let's get rid of that. So we got two more blend shapes, and we'll apply them again to the model in the next step, and then look at driving them using set driven keys. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is add these two shapes to the model. So select again the corrective blend shapes, make sure they're labeled. Oops, that's 100 there, that's lucky. So select these corrective blend shapes, select the target mesh, which is the bound character, and instead of going create deformers blend shape, which will create another blend shape node, I'm going to go edit deformers blend shape, add, and specify a node, call it, well, it's correctives, apply and close. Now we should be able to find these here as well. Okay, so that's the left wrist, and that's the corrective shape in action. Oops. Yeah. So so that's everything applied, and what we want to do next is I'll just pop these into that layer and hide them for now. And you can, they're probably sitting all on top of each other, so we could make sure that they're not. That'll be fine there. So what I want to do next is just hide that and then drive these using the joint information or the joint rotation. Okay, so still got this active, and you can do this with expressions if you want. You know, whatever works for you. I was tempted to use an expression actually, so I can then multiply it by another attribute to turn that on and off, rather than always being on. But to get this going anyway, I'm just going to go animate. Well, actually, I'm going to select the joint. So I'll just bring this open, and the driving joint I'm going to use is going to be the left palm joint. And the reason I'm not using controls is because every now and then, for example in the arm, we may switch between FK and IK, and therefore the driving control will be different, and I don't want both controls to drive the same blend shape. So by applying it to the joint, the joint that's skinned, or the joint that's driving the main joints in this, we always know that the IK drives that set of joints, or that joint, and the FK will drive that joint as well. So so we know it's always going to be turned on at the right time. Okay, hopefully that made sense. But yeah, so we're going to apply it to the joint. So I'm going to select the left palm joint and go animate set driven key set to load it as, oh no, I didn't want to select that. I want to load it as the driver, so just hit load driver. And I want to select the blend shape, so I'm just going to select the geometry. You can select it here and hit load driven, and that brings it in. Sometimes it doesn't, so you may want to go to the attribute editor, find the blend shape node, and just hit select here, and then load driven. Okay, so we got our blend shapes here. If I select these are the weights for them, so we can turn them on and off. And we're going to use the rotate Z. This is the left hand side, so I'm just going to set a default pose for both of the left hand side ones. Okay, so they're turned off at the minute, they should be, yeah. So let's just set a key on this, and then let's take the palm down to, oops, sorry, not the palm joint. We still want to drive it with the control, but that's driving the joint anyway. You can see there's rotational information on that joint. So let's take that down to -70. Turn on the left wrist key. Oops, sorry, just key the left wrist this time. Go up to 100, and this time the right wrist, left wrist positive 100, left wrist positive, key that. So now when we use this, we're triggering these two blend shapes, and you can kind of see that between this pose and that pose, it's trying to get into the corrective shape. So I may add a mid pose here. So if I just select this, take it to maybe there, maybe 70. I'm going to come back to my correctives and just wind that down slightly. Oops, not that low. Maybe to around here. So let's just round it off to 0.5 maybe. 0.4. Yeah, 0.5 I think worked okay. Okay, so key that again. So that's our going down seems fine, coming up that seems better, going beyond maybe not so. We could actually, if we wanted to, maybe take that to 120, highlight this corrective and go to the graph editor. So we can see it's this one here, and we could fine tune it here. First I may just make this linear so it doesn't suddenly shoot. So just make that a linear curve. We could soften that here. See what that looks like. Again, going beyond 100 doesn't hit that pose because it's done for. But that feels better going up now. And if you wanted to go beyond 100 and still use that shape, so let's just say 120, there's no reason why we couldn't select this shape and take that, just pop it up to 120 here. So now that blend shape doesn't finish until it hits that value. Okay, so I may leave it with 120 actually. I kind of like it, even though it's named 100. It's fine. And then going down, let's just check the other blend shape. Oops, going down is this one, and again you can see it's got some sort of ease in and ease out. I'm just going to make that linear, so the transition between it is just cleaner. Okay, so that's the wrist handled. Let's just turn that off. And again, it's the same setup for the bicep bulge and everything else. Okay, it's going to be the get it into pose, duplicate the mesh, create the corrective shape, apply it using the B-Spirit corrective, mirror it over with the absim mesh. So you can see the difference with that actually compared to that. That's a lot cleaner. And then apply it using set-driven keys driven by joint information rather than the controls. Okay, so I'll do the let's quickly hook up this side. So we've got the palm joint is the one we want as the driver. We've got rotate Z. This time we're doing the right wrist. Key that. So these have been keyed. I'll take that control now and put it down to oops, it was Z minus 70. I'm going to activate right wrist here. Oops. So this one, M70 minus 70, key that. And take this back up to 100 now, or 120 it was, wasn't it? I think I ended up with. And turn this one on, and key this. And I had a mid position. So again, I can just select the this corrective and find out. So it's right wrist positive I'm doing. So I had a mid position at 70. So if I wanted to, I could just come in here, add a keyframe, just middle mouse drag on this, click. So we've got this, and just pop that to 70. Then come back here and steal this value as 0.5. That's 0.5 then. That's at 1 120. That's fine. This one here should be linear, and I think it's all linear. That one's been smoothed out a little, something like that. Yeah, same curve. These ones need to be all linear, and that's fine. So that's exactly the same now as the other side. So we get a, yeah, just a cleaner deformation, I guess. Again, maybe here. Do I like that bulge starting? Do we get that here? Yeah, kind of. Okay, so yeah, that feels a lot better. So there, the wrist done, and again, I'll do the same for the bicep next. I'll do it in camera, but I'll just speed it up because the process is exactly the same. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to do the same again for the bicep bulge. So I've got the left lower arm FK control, and just to point out, I'll be doing these corrective shapes just using the FK controls, because that way I can isolate which joint is going to drive motion, where if I was to use, say, IK, it's, you know, and put it into this shape, we could, you know, figure out which, but usually that's going to use more axis to, it's going to be trickier to get this into a sort of a clean pose on one axis. So the driving joint will be, you know, variation, I guess, of axes. So yeah, using just FK allows you to just, you know, direct which one is going to drive the set driven key. So I'm going to create maybe a pose here, so maybe around 90, let's call it, or maybe 100, just go a bit extreme. So I'm going to duplicate this, again unlock, translate this back, let's hide the joints for now, let's add this to this layer, hide and hide, and I'm going to create a bit of a bulge, but mainly just tidy up the elbow region really, and this part here, and get a bit more volume happening here. So I think for this one I'm going to use a combination of Maya and Mudbox, because I just find it sometimes easier to sculpt on top. So let's see. So first I want to push all of this back out, so I'm just going to go in edge mode, got soft selection still active, maybe I'll just select this edge here as well, just see what we get. So we've got all of this here, and I just want to clean up how this is pushing against each other. So this may get a bit messy for a while, but hopefully I'll come out the other end. Just trying to get this back out, and I may just use the sculpt geometry tool just to smooth this. I'm just holding the shift just to smooth, just to get rid of. So that's a cleaner sort of shape now, and now I just want to, don't know where I've gone now. There we go. Yeah, now I just want to create this this sort of bulge. So I'm going to grab these points maybe and push them back here. Maybe take this elbow and just push that out slightly. And I just want a bit more volume into here. So yeah, I think I'll finish this in Mudbox and a bit of cleanup here. So I'm just going to go File, Export Selection, and Corrective Shapes folder. I'll just create a new one, just call it OBJs. And I'll call this one to be left. Or is it left elbow? And it was, I think it was what, 100 degrees? So rotate X, I think it was 100. Yeah. we can rename that later on. Okay, so I'm just going to open up Mudbox now and bring this in and just finish tidying this shape up and then bring it back. Okay. Actually, I forgot to mention, when you send this to Mudbox, it's a good idea to pop this back to the default position of the original model, only because if you have it out there somewhere and you bring it back in, it kind of thinks that you've moved every vertex of the model. So when you apply this, a bit like this really, so when you apply this back after doing it in Mudbox, and you apply this as a blend shape, the fix anyway, it will go, woo, well, forget the arm, but it will move the whole character, which you don't want. Okay, so yeah, to fix that, just make sure you export this out back at the default position. Okay, so I'm going to export that out again, and then take that one into my Mudbox. Okay, so default position, send this to Mudbox, you'll be fine. Okay, so I'm going to open that up next, and we'll use some of the sculpt tools quickly and then bring it back into Maya afterwards. Okay, so I'm in Mudbox now. I'm just going to go File, Open, and here's that shape that I've got. Just keep this mesh. It's got no UVs, or it's got dodgy UVs. Yeah, very dodgy. And I'm just going to work on this shape. So using the grab brush, I'm just going to pull some of this out. Maybe hold down the shift just to smooth it out slightly. Again, I'm just going to use the grab brush just to play with this shape a bit more. So yeah, I guess at this stage, I guess you want to be looking at your arm, seeing where the bulge occurs, the shape of the crease, things like that. We could even smooth it here by just doing a Shift D. Just make sure you drop down to the lowest subdivision level when you take it back out. So you do a page up or page down in this case. Maybe I'll just work on the smoothed mesh. So I may add a bit of bulge into this region. So I've just got a very low weight and hopefully some sort of soft fall off. Just add more of a bulge up here, just to where that crease happens. You get a nice sort of bulge happening at the top and the bottom of the arm. So just around here, just get a bit more volume happening there. So that brings out the elbow nicely. I'm gonna just soften that. And you get quite a bit of volume, a bit of bulging happening around this region here, just down there as well slightly. So that's looking better. In terms of the bulge, I'm not going to give it the a humongous bulge like this, I guess, or bigger. Only because you'll find that with just flexing the arm like this, you'll get, especially in the prone position, you'll sort of get like a partial bulge happen, but when you put the wrist into the supine position, so you twist your forearm, that sort of activates the full bulge. So I'm going to do two corrective blend shapes for this one, which is just sort of like this flex position, and one driven by the twisting of the wrist to create the supine position. So this bulge here, it's not going to be too intense, but I'll add an extra shape on top in a bit. But I just want to play with that shape a bit more, and maybe use the fill brush just to fill that gap a bit more here. Just move that back out. To create a nice crease, you can use the pinch brush in here. Okay, so yeah, now I'm just going to add a bit of a bulge, but not too extreme. Just smoothing down as well, just so I get a nicer shape. Okay, so maybe something like that. And again, you can spend as much time, obviously, you'll want to spend as much time as you can just refining these shapes, because I guess they'll really add to the overall deformation of your character. Just using the fill there just to fill that a bit more. Okay, so let's drop down. So that's what we get when we drop down, but once we smooth this, hopefully we'll get a more of a refined look. Okay, so I'm tempted to add more bulge. Maybe I will in a second, we'll see. But for now, I'm just going to go to the object, select move tools, go to objects, or you can just hold space, click on this head, select model, and go file, export selection, and I'll save that out as fix. And load this back into Maya and see what we get there. Okay, so back in Maya now, we've got the shape that we sent out. I'm just going to go File, Import, and bring in that fix that we just made in Mudbox. I'm just going to hit OK to this and delete all the quick select sets it creates for the new object. So we can now compare, say, the pose that we fixed in Mudbox to our default, and I haven't given it actually much of a bulge, so I think I'm just going to push this a bit further now. So this is the polyshape 1 node from Mudbox, and I'm just going to go in here with soft select and just make that bulge a bit bigger, and I think everything else I'm pretty happy with. So maybe I'll just take some of this in a bit more as well. Okay, so that's, let's hide. I'm going to hide, not this one, the original one. Actually, I'm just going to delete it. Just going to smooth this, see what it looks like. And again, I want to just bring back some of the volume up here, get a nice bulge. Maybe just tuck this in here to bring that out a bit more. Say don't ask again. Okay, so same at the bottom. Oh, I've got a bit of a bulge here. Just want to bring that out a bit more by just pushing this in maybe, and then taking this down. Maybe up here. So okay, so I'm just going to soften that actually on this side slightly. Just use the sculpt geometry tool. Oops. And just soften it here. Just holding down the shift again just to soften some of this. That's fine now. Okay, so so that could be the bicep bulge, and again I'm just going to translate this one back now. That's fine to do in here. Bring back the main mesh, the animated mesh, and apply the B-Spirit corrective. And we've got our bicep shape now, so I'll just delete this one, translate this back, and this is going to be rotate X 100. So I'm just going to steal this naming convention here. I'll call this elbow. Let's rotate X, and it's 100 positive. Okay, so that's the name of that. Let's just quickly do a quick test. Don't have to do this bit, but I just want to make sure that that's working okay. Okay, so there's our big bulge. So that works. I'll just undo that and duplicate this shape now, move it along, rename this one to be the right hand side, bring back the absim tool and just flip selected. And then same again, like we did with the these two here. So you're going to select these two and hit Shift P to bring them out of wherever they may be. Select this mesh last and go Edit Deformers, Blend Shape, Add with the options box. Specify the node, apply and close. So we can now bring them into here. So they're gone, and they should be in this correctives window. That's the right hand side, there's the left. Okay, so if you actually look down here, there's a slight bit of tinker on the leg and on the other side. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just bring these back, just unparent them so they come out of that hierarchy. I'm going to zero out this mesh, just disable these shapes. So I'm just going to zero out this control for now. And obviously it's I've moved something down there, so I'm just going to duplicate this, unlock it, and I'm going to translate it. I'm going to translate it back to the same position as these. Okay, so I'm just going to select this, shift select this object second, and hit highlight the value as the difference, and hit tab to move it into place. And yeah, we can see there's quite a few bits and bobs actually that need to be edited. So it must be editing. I must have moved some points here as well, probably in my hasty. Yeah, you can see there's a slight movement. So so yeah, I want to fix that. So I'm just going to template this model and come to point snap, turn on the, just hide this one for now. Make sure that's in a new layer so I can disable that. Okay, so I want to make sure I'm doing it to the right model. That's my fix. Yeah, I want to fix this, so I'm going to select the vertex, and I'm just going to, I've got point snap turned on, so I'm just going to snap these to, to put them back to where they were. Looks like it's that side done. Obviously done a few down here as well. Yeah, I guess when I'm doing blend shapes, I should maybe just check sometimes what I've got selected. And all of this side as well. So oops. So I'll just quickly speed this up so you don't have to see me doing it one vertex at a time, okay? Okay, so you probably just saw me spend, I think it took around 5 minutes in total. That portion has just been sped up by around 300%. And I just push those points back, so when I turn this shape on, it doesn't affect the legs anymore. Okay, so I must have just knocked them by accident. So what I want to do next is, hook this up to the forearm as it bends, same way as we did the wrist. So I'm going to take in, I'm going to show the joints to begin with, and the driving object is going to be the left lower arm. So I'm just going to go animate set driven key, set load driver. And again, it's the blend shapes that are going to be the driven objects. So there's the correctives. In this case, it's rotate X, I think it was, 100 degrees that we're using. So rotate X, that's going to be hooked up to left elbow, rotate X, key, take this control up to 100, and then activate this corrective shape. Okay, and key again. So now when we use this control, we get the bicep bulge. You can see in between the poses we get this horrible thing happening. So I think I'm going to go to maybe around 70 and tone this corrective down slightly, maybe to around this. Let's have a look. Or maybe even lower, maybe 3. Yeah, maybe 3. Key selected again. Oops, didn't want to do key selected there, that was bad of me. Because I don't want to set a key on this keyframe, I want to set a key in here. So, what did we say, 3 in the end, was it? Yeah, around that, and then key here. Okay, so let's have a look now. And the bulge comes into play just around there. Okay, so that feels better. Again, we can go into the to the graph editor. And it's the elbow fix. Have I got that selected or something? I'm just going to come into here. Oh yeah, that's fine. It's because it's on the joint. So that's my elbow fix here, left elbow, and I'm going to take this and make it linear, I think. And coming out, I think I'll make that linear as well. see what, well, let's just test it out, see what we get. Yeah, that feels fine. So there's our bulge. Just going to check it out when it's smoothed. Oops. So it really slows down the rig with the smoothing and the corrective shapes, but it's going to be fine. Okay, so that looks fine. So what I want to do next is I'll set up the other side, and then after that I'm going to twist this wrist here, and what that's going to do is create some more flexion of the bicep. So when you mix that with the flexion and the forearm twist happening, or going into the supine position, so doing something like that, you'll get a bigger bulge, and I want that to drive a bigger bulge here. Okay, so that's going to be the next thing. Once I've quickly done the other side, which should be, you know, fairly straightforward, we want this joint, right lower arm as the driver object. We know it's rotate X. Oops, I haven't set that as the driver object yet. Rotate X, we know it's the right elbow fix. I'm going to key that, and then I think I'm just going to be cheap and do a copy and paste job like we did for the finger setup. So it's this one here. It's the left hand side. Where is the left elbow? Okay, so I'm going to take that curve and go edit, copy, just copy, and go to the right hand side, go edit, paste, replace, clipboard, entire curve, paste. Yeah, same as what we did for the fingers, I think a couple of weeks back. Oops. So now when we do this, we get that side as well. Okay, so both sides have been created. So yeah, next we'll do the full flexion of the bicep muscle using the twist, going into the supine position. Okay, so for this one I'm going to actually animate some of these controls so I can get a good idea of what that blend shape's going to do, because it gets a bit tricky with this one because we're sort of blending different blend shapes to be triggered by different bits and bobs in a close proximity. So so I'm just going to set a key here and here on the wrist and the palm control. I'll just go up maybe 25 frames and create the flexion to maybe to around, I think we had it at 100. That creates this bulge, so we get that so far, and then from 25 onward, I just set another key on this control and then pop that into the like a supine position. So maybe something like that. And then when it does this is when I want it to give me the what's that, 132. Let's change that to maybe 130 for now. Oops, minus 130. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set another key pose. Give myself a few more frames, maybe 50. And I'm going to turn this off. Okay, so that, I need another frame here as well where I copy and paste this. It's around here somewhere. I think it was 37 actually. 37, yeah. Okay, so so that's the pose that I want to apply this bicep bulge to. So I'm going to duplicate this here. unlock, translate it back. Oops, I've still got that point snap on. And then I'm going to create a partial bulge. Again, it's going to get quite tricky to get this working together, but it should be hopefully fine. Hopefully I haven't got anything of the leg this time. So I want more of a bulge here. And I want to push this, oops, maybe here. I want to push this inwards as well. Okay. Maybe not so much actually. Again, I can always refine it in a second a bit more once we're seeing how these work together. Okay, so that would do for now. That looks pretty big, but let's quickly create the shape. Delete that one. This is that shape, and I'm going to hook this up for now. So I'm just going to, what's this going to be called? It's going to be called left wrist, and it's rotate Y minus 30. Should maybe call these palm to match the control. Minus 130, sorry. And I'm going to apply this as a blend shape. So edit deformers, blend shape, add. Correctives, yes. I'm going to shift P to bring it out from wherever it is. And now I'm just going to turn this on. So you can see we get that there, and see what we get when we animate this. Okay, so so if we come to this control, and at this stage it should be turned off. So I'm just going to turn this off. So I'm just manually setting some keys now to see how this is going to work. And then when it gets to 36, 37, it should turn on. Okay, so key, yeah, it's already set a key for me. Okay, so we get that at the minute. So we're getting a bigger bulge, but as this bulge comes in, I sort of want it to pull in rather than come out so much. So I'm going to do this live with this active so I can compare. So I want a cleaner shape to begin with. Not too happy about that. And I'm going to pour this in like this. Then maybe bring some of this out. It's kind of going along that axis, and I want it to pull up slightly a bit more. Still want it to go up a bit more, but hopefully you can get the idea of what I'm trying to go for. If you have a look at this like this. does it swell from the top? So I'm happy with the direction it's going now. I just wanted to swell a bit more. So I think I'm just going to pull it out slightly. Okay, so that feels okay for now. Again, let's have a look. So we've got sort of like a partial flexion there, and then the full flexion as we twist that into pronation. Okay, so yeah, pretty happy with that. So what I want to do next, again, I'll keep this on camera. Well, first I need to mirror this over to the other side. So again, just get him away from him a little bit, duplicate this, translate him back. It's going to be right hand side, use the absent mesh, flip selected. And I think for this one, for now, I'm not going to hook this up to the forearm twist. I think I may leave this and drive it manually later on. We'll see. I might hook this up, but you know, sometimes I think when you're twisting it from when you're turning on, when you're just, where is it? I'm doing it here, I think. Actually, let's just add a bit more, a few more frames. It comes back here. Let's set another key, and let's go back to 0 here, and from 50. Set a key there and disable this. Oops. Okay, so yeah, because sometimes I think that might be a bit too much. I mean, we could always tone it down, but yeah, I like it when it's just, you know, when you're doing supination with the flexion of the arm. I think that works well. But here, yeah, we could tone it down, but I think I'd rather manually tone that down. So maybe when I do that at this point, you know, this is going at something like that maybe. So there's some movement, but not too extreme, like half the amount. So yeah, I think I'll handle that manually later on. Okay, so I'm just going to delete all these keyframes. I'm going to select this control and this control and do the same again, just delete those keyframes. And I need to hook this up now, because that's the right hand side. So create deformers, edit deformers, blend shape, add. Did I mirror this over? I didn't even check. Yeah, I think I did. Looks like it. Specify node, apply. Okay, both of these two can now go into this corrective groups. You can go, we should have left and right. There we go. Okay, so so what I want to do next is just extension of the arm, and then I think I'll handle the shoulder. But I think I might do that off camera and then just show you the results once I come back. Okay.